Oh no. Oh, can you guys
Oh
hear us now?
no.
I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, can you
Oh
guys hear
man.
us now? I'm so sorry, guys. Oh, can you
Oh
guys
man.
hear us now? I'm so sorry, guys. Okay. Oh, can
Oh
you guys hear
man.
us now? Sorry. Okay. Do you want to maybe mute the stream
I'm so
on
sorry,
your
guys.
end? Okay. Oh, can
Oh
you guys hear
man.
us now? Sorry. Okay. Do you want to maybe mute the stream on your end? Okay. Okay. There we go. So sorry about that, everybody. I deeply apologize. Oh my god, sorry. Like it's this OBS. So basically, in order to stream it, just so you guys understand, basically, like OBS is a software that takes this video and all the things that go into it, and then it restreams it basically on Facebook and on YouTube and all these places. And I'm so sorry for that. I'm still getting into the whole groove of this too, but basically, it had an override on my actual mic. So and it clicked default instead of the actual one that's coming in here. So basically, just to catch you guys up, Stefan here is a recording artist, and he works as in a marketing job for his typical like 9 to 5 job. And basically, his whole process here is he wants to see how he can build up a music business in his spare time, basically outside of that, and then transition that into more of his primary business. So again, I'm so sorry for missing the first few minutes there, but that's a good sort of synopsis of how
Yeah.
of where we're at. And we're only at a couple minutes there, so I deeply apologize for that, guys. But the good thing is, I do have this recorded on TikTok also, so I can put the audio on the video later to fix it all for everybody. So I deeply apologize again for that. So that's where we're at. So we're just getting into this now, and the whole thing, guys, is like how you go about actually building up a business for yourself. And there's two sort of ways, right? Like we discussed earlier, you can go and say, okay, you want to go and create all the content yourself, but the thing with that is you might get some highs, you might get some lows, right? So that can be good. And like if you really hit on things like you're saying, that's great, right? But you want to think like, okay, how can I build like a great business here? And when in doing that, you should really think about, buying either small agencies that produce music. Maybe you can do, promoters, things like that. Like these are all little companies that exist that you can purchase and then get some more like recurring revenue, because that's, in my opinion, the number one thing like you can do, not like aside from like creating the music, is like building a
Mhm.
nice company, right? So there's tons of people who do this, right? Like UMG, for example, that's a huge label. I don't know if you know them, but they
Yeah.
cover everyone. Yeah, they cover everyone from like Migos and everything, and that's all they do. They just go and they build and build and build, and then you'll be in a position too where you can go and sign artists and promote them and do those things. So the whole thing is like the number one thing is to establish a cash flow and get that going. And when you have that, there's just tremendous opportunity for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a few different ways to really kind of take uh, what you're saying and use it to. I mean, because it's not aside from music that there's a lot of uh, distribution for like merchandise for other
Mm-hmm.
musicians, things like that. Yeah, I think there's quite a few different ways to really go about that. And I guess right now I'm really kind of working on figuring out how to replace my 9 to 5 outside of music, and of course using everything I'm doing to support music. But I kind of started this in 2020 with my first little venture, and it was actually an e-commerce store. I was working in e-com at the time too, using a lot of the stuff that I had kind of learned or had been learning in my time at my first like company,
Mm-hmm.
and I built this little uh, unicorn store that was like all unicorn themed like products. Actually, I parodied Louis Vuitton.
Nice.
So that was like one of the products, and I did it all through print on demand, which
Mm-hmm.
the tough thing with that, and I think the audience that I was going for that kind of style specifically, it was really tough to not have the quality control over like the packaging. because
Mm.
the products were at a relatively good high level through the company going through, and I was really happy with that. But I really felt like that audience specifically really would have benefited from like very um, a much better experience than what I could provide through like any sort of print on demand.
Yeah, so and
Um,
so just so you guys know what print on demand is, basically you design something and you send it to this manufacturing company or whatever form it may be,
mm,
and then if you get an order from it, they create it for you and ship it for you. Okay, and that's a very common merchandising technique that people use all the time. And yeah, you're basically you're fighting like a two front war there. On one hand, you
mm,
have to say like, okay, do I want to have like a good quality product? But on the other hand, the ones that create the best products are going to be like very expensive, right? And that's always like
mm,
the problem with these things. So I understand that for sure, and that's kind of another thing too that supports your idea of really building a brand, right? Because the stronger
mm.
like personal brand you have, then that's when you can get a lot of this merchandising going. So it's a very
Yeah,
interesting sort of dichotomy there. So that's one of the things too, like you just have so many opportunities, right? You have to
yeah.
really think like how you want to go about it. And I think that as long as like you just create a constant stream of content, at least like at that bare minimum, that's gonna like just pay tremendous dividends, right? So I guess from the sort of content you've created so far, what has been like the general feedback? Like, do people like it? Do you think it's like good quality? Like, what would you say?
I would say I'm continuously improving on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's great.
I think I definitely have like a core group that's very active and is certainly receptive to it. I'm always I don't know. It's tough for me like not it's hard for me to look at it objectively is
Yeah,
the
no,
way
one
to
hundred
put it.
percent.
But yeah, I'm it's something I guess I learned early on. I was just I did it on Snapchat, and I just made these like stupid jokes. And I'm honestly so glad it happened like this instead of like, I mean, it was nice to have to like be able to make a ton of mistakes with a bunch of my friends or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But they started telling me that they were hilarious and that I was actually really funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started to really get used to it, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And so that transition from just doing it for fun as a joke to really doing it as a musician, it was pretty easy for me to make. There was, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was much easier than it would have been otherwise. Because I don't feel awkward like in front of the camera. It's
Mm-hmm.
something I had I had an awkward phase, but I'm uh,
Me too, man. No, and that's
you were very good at being excited though. I learned
yes.
so much watching your videos. I'm like, yes, this is like perfect.
No, and like people literally thought sorry, you guys missed that part too. And again, I apologize. We had the mic issue earlier on. Like in the early days of the 0 to 1 billion challenge, I was like incredibly like private before that. But when I was starting, like I was so bad for like the first like 40 or 50 days. But then it's like you get used to it, right? And then people roast you. It's like, oh my god, like this guy is like sounds stupid or whatever. And it's just like you have to enjoy what you do, right? And it's like I never cared
Mm-hmm.
about that, and eventually I got better at it. But no, I fully understand that and appreciate that. So I guess like basically you're just continuously trying to make as good content as possible, and that's a really good way of looking at it, right? So I guess to build upon this then. So what is your personal like finance goals? Like are you looking to really go after more of like a legacy, or are you looking for more of like a accumulation of like personal assets? And those are basically like the two main streams that like most people tell me they're interested in.
Yeah, I guess right now. I mean, that's a tough question.
Mm-hmm.
I see myself, I guess, flipping back and forth, depending on what I've got going on in my personal like 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. That in the past year, almost a year now, has gotten a lot less fun. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Where I've dealt with some of the annoying challenges that come with just having a job. Um, And that's gotten me really thinking, I guess, I don't want to say shorter term, but I'm like, oh, like I really want that freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And I recognize too how much more I will be able to devote to everything else I'm doing uh, once I have that. You know, one of the things that I did early on, it was actually right after, I think it was about 6 months after I decided, okay, I want to do music. I had been learning Dutch at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and I had written a Dutch song and like was just had just finished recording it, and I had planned a trip to the Netherlands. And while I was there, this was actually my second music video. I just recorded a music video while I was over there. And since then, I've actually did it. I went back the next year and did a second one. And that kind of got me on this idea of doing like destination music videos,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is a really cool way. You know, it's kind of my unique thing. I love traveling and learning languages, and it's a way I can kind of share that within my music.
Right.
Of course, 2020 happened, and I haven't really gone anywhere. Um, but yeah, I'm really, I guess a talent of mine, sort of like I don't know, it's a weird talent. It's like an instinct of mine. Probably a better way to put it is figuring out, is taking all the different things that I do and putting them together. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the ways that I've done that is through those couple destination things where you know I learned Dutch and I wrote a song and then I've traveled to do and kind of shared that. And thinking now how much better I can be at it. Like back then, I was really early on. I guess that was really my awkward phase
Yeah,
where
for
like I
sure.
didn't really know what I was doing, um, and wasn't as good at kind of sharing some of those things where I am now, where it's actually hard because I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything quote unquote exciting. Um, so now that I'm much more comfortable and will have and as soon as I really have more freedom to you know away from whatever I'm not you know tied to a 9 to 5, I really
Mm-hmm.
see that I think that I will be able to grow much more quickly than I probably realize.
Yeah, so I think your core issue is basically stepping away from this 9 to 5 so that you can
It's scary.
basically go into the music full time. And this is a challenge that so many people have, right? And it's like, look, you need some income coming in to obviously support yourself, but you need time to go and dedicate
Hmm.
towards doing something positive like you want to do.
Yeah.
So that's the main challenge, right? So the main sort of challenge with that is, look, it's actually a little bit easier in my opinion to go like the personal asset route first and then sort of build the business, because at least
Mm.
you'll have some income coming in to do it. Because like the hardest thing to do, man, is start a business and
Oh yeah.
start it and like actually get revenue coming in, right? So something you might want to consider is, look, maybe you work for a couple, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. Okay, you can think, okay, maybe if I work for a couple years, save up maybe realistically like 30 or 40,000, something like that.
Mm.
Maybe that's enough to buy like a rental unit, a down payment for a
Yeah.
rental unit. Get a couple of those going. So then you have income. So then you can ditch the 9 to 5, right? And then from there, you can go all in on the music and build it up. That's one way you could look at it. Another way is saying like, look, okay, let me go and try and take a loan and maybe buy a company. And it's probably not going to be exactly what you want, like in the beginning, because it's probably going to be like hard to say, okay, I want like a production company or a
Right.
label that's this size that I can like step into and buy and be like to my specifications, all those things like that. But maybe you can find something somewhat related, right? And then you can say, okay, let me take the money I've saved up, put that as a down payment, go and get like a SBA loan, something like that, buy the company, and then you have some cash flow that way, and then you're actually working in a business that you actually like, right?
Yeah.
And the thing with that is it's going to be harder for you to find that business, right? So you're going to have to sort of expand the scope of what it is. But if you don't want to go like either of those down either of those routes, the other thing you could do too is like bet on yourself and really start that business, right? But you have to think like, what's that actually going to look like, right? And in my opinion, like you were kind of on the right path before of saying like, look, in order to really monetize the things you're creating, you have to really do it through like the merchandising, right? And that's
Mm.
that's how most people do it. So you'd have to say like, okay, I might need to spend like 3 to 4 hours like a day if I can making good content and just keep pumping out, hoping that something eventually like really really hits, right? You get like a
Yeah.
huge following because that's your game, man. You're gonna shoot like 100 shots and probably like maybe like two or three of them are going to be like really really good, and you're not going to know which ones they are. Like trust me,
Oh yeah.
I've done videos before. I'm like, oh my god, this is an amazing video, and it's like it did terrible, right? But then like the ones that I just am myself or whatever, and I thought it was just like an okay video. Okay, those are the ones that get like 50,000 views or whatever, right? Like you never know.
Yeah.
You just have to keep shooting your shots. So those are basically like the three ways that I think are sort of the best, for you. And like I'm a little bit biased. Like I like buying businesses. That's what I do, right? So it's like if I were you, that's what I would do. I would go and buy something for sure. But that's up to you, right? There's a ton of stresses that come in with that. So I guess, having sort of addressed those three things, like what do you think is sort of like the most like realistic for you? What would you say?
I've definitely considered the buying business route.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, I think the challenge is really finding that right business, and you're right. Like it's probably not, especially starting out. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to totally fit the vision.
Mm-hmm.
Doing merchandising for, you know, XYZ company, like that might be, there would certainly be some compromise there. It's probably the best
Mm-hmm.
way to put it.
For sure.
But I've certainly considered that, and I guess the other thing I've really, I suppose I've considered really all three of them. I haven't. I've always been a fan of like real estate,
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that I really um, I've considered, but I don't know it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I suppose as soon as I started following Dan Pena,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of switched gears and was leaned more towards the buying
Yeah.
business side for sure.
So yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like, see, rewards are tied to risk, and like this isn't like new information, right? Like, everybody knows this,
Mhm.
but like when you buy like a house, for example, that's a fixed return, right? Like pretty much you're going to get like maybe 12-15% on your money, something like that. Maybe you'll get like 1,000 or two, per month in like income, and then that's good. But to really support yourself, you're going to need like three or four of those. So you're going to need more money to be able to buy these three or four houses. So you might need like 150, like realistically, you might
Right.
need about like 150 grand in cash to go and have enough houses just to sort of like supplement or match the income you're currently at, right? And sometimes that's it's hard to like save that much money when you're starting out or whatever. Like I don't know your personal situation that well, obviously, but if that's something that's viable for you, then that's good. But assuming that it's like I understand the realities that saving that amount of cash is difficult. Buying a business would give you that opportunity to get that cash flow with lower money down, right? Like you can buy a
Yeah.
company with as low as like 10% down. Whereas like if you were trying to do that with real estate, it would be really hard because you're probably gonna have to get like a second mortgage because like normally
Right.
banks like these days are only lending like 70% LTV, right? So and you really don't want to be putting like 30% down payments because then that's just not a great return on your money at that point. Like you need the
Yeah.
leverage to make the real estate work. So yeah, like I would really consider looking at buying a business if you think you can manage it well, of course, and do these things, and that's the beauty of it, right? Like if you're a really good manager, and we can touch on that in a minute, and you can like spot these small businesses, especially in that range that like you'd be looking to buy, like realistically, like businesses like probably under $1 million in price, then like man, the sky's the limit, right? Because you can go in there and like companies that size, the best thing about them is they're filled with like inefficiencies. So like when you come into it, you say, okay, that doesn't make sense. I can cut this cost. I can do this better, and you can create a ton of value for yourself. Like if I had infinite time, I wouldn't ever buy like big companies. I would buy like tiny ones and just fix them up, right? And then get a ton of cash flow from them. But now I'm at the spot where the company, my company's at about like $50 million like enterprise value. I have to buy companies that are like 20 million, 30 million, something like that, because that's like what my time is worth now. Do you know what I mean? So it's like my
Yeah.
returns go down due to the size. You have a tremendous opportunity here because you can buy these smaller companies, fix them up, get a ton of great cash flow, and then that can fund everything you want to do, right? For sure.
That's fascinating. No, I've never heard anyone explain it that
No, it's like,
So,
see, it's like private equity and all these things. It's a very sort of it's a niche field. Like the people who do it, they're pretty much like all like older. They have like gray hair. You know,
yeah.
they go and work at like McKinsey for like 20 years, and then they like branch out and do their own things. But yeah, like you know, a lot of people have this like self-limiting beliefs too, where it's like, okay, like I don't know enough to buy the business. I don't know those things. Like I bought a business, I didn't know anything, right? Like I had business sense, right? I had an Amazon store.
Right.
I had never like bought a company before. I had never, managed like that many people and all those things before. But you figure it out, right? And like you're a smart guy. Like I'm sure you can do it. And yeah, like that's like you have so much to gain through it, right? And the thing is like if you sort of follow the Dan Pena model and do a lot of like seller financing with it, then like your downside is pretty limited anyways. Because like the one thing you don't want to do is like say like I don't know, let's make up some hypothetical scenario. Say you have like a local like recording studio or something like that's near you that you'd like to buy. Maybe it's like $200,000 or something like that. Maybe
Yeah.
they make like 50, 75 grand a year, and that's what they're offering. So realistically, like you can get the seller to pretty much put up like 50, 60, 70% of that financing for you, and you pay them back over time, right? And the reason why they're going to do that is because like pretty much most, like 99% of companies that are listed for sale don't sell, okay? Especially the really small ones. So you have a tremendous opportunity to go in there and say, look, I'm here. I want to be hardworking, make sure your business is successful going forward. I want to take this off your hands. And people will work with you, man. Like I've done crazy deals before where it's like, you're paying like pennies for like what you're actually getting back. And that's where like the value creation actually comes from, right? It's how you structure the deal. It's all about the assets you're getting. And a lot of people don't think this way, right? So it's like deal making itself, especially on these small companies, is where your personal net worth is going to explode. And like,
Yeah.
mhm.
That you, as you were talking, that really just got me thinking. Even if I don't like, let's just say for whatever reason, I haven't really pulled the trigger, and it's like a year, maybe 2 years from now, and obviously I'm still working, building up my music, and I think the more I build up, what I'm doing, the easier that's gonna get. If I come into I guess what I'm trying to say is like I could even if I don't do it right now, like there's no chance where that I don't see an opportunity to really do it down the road in a big way.
Oh, for sure. There's always deals to be had, man. Always, and it's just like part of the thinking too is like you have to realize, look, there are tons and tons and tons of people trying to sell their business. They don't have people to give them off to. Like it happens all the time, man. Like pretty much every company I've ever bought was a situation where it was, a husband or wife or whatever. They had a business. They ran it for like 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. Then they had no one to give it to. And like Dan Pena says this all the time because it's
Oh
exactly
yeah.
true. Like the people who build businesses, like they're typically one type of person, right? Like they're like very motivated, they're all these things, but then because they're so invested into the company, like typically their kids like don't want that for them, right? Because like they see like, oh, like dad's never here or whatever. Like I don't want that life. I want to like value these other
Mhm.
things, right? And that's very, very common. So like basically it creates a ton of positives in your favor because you're the only one who's interested in buying it. You have the expertise to buy it. You have the money to buy it, and you can always find it, right? So you don't have to pull the trigger today. You can pull it like anytime you want. There's always going to be deals, and the beauty of it is, the the hardest thing in the beginning is like the commercial financing because you're going to have no track record. The bank is not going to want to deal with you. They're going to want to charge you like prime plus 5. And for those of you who don't know what that is, like prime is basically the lowest sort of like cost of funds at the bank. And then they'll say like, okay, if our cost of funds is like 5%, they don't lend you money at 5% because they still have to make money on top of that. So they'll say like, okay, we're gonna for like a really good business, they'll say, okay, prime plus half a percentage point for your interest rate. If you're just starting out, they could say it as high as like 10%, right? Like prime plus 10% based on your risk rating, right? Because if you're more risky to the bank, they're going to charge you more to make that make more sense for them. So basically when you're starting out it's pretty difficult to start with banks, so you want to be pushing like the seller financing. And that's why, targeting these smaller companies is going to work tremendously to your favor. But then that's the thing. Once you take down one, and then you have a good like track record with it, then the banks are going to like want to give you like tons and tons of money. So it's crazy how it works, but like that's what you need to do. Just like keep working, bank up some money, work on the music, and then like if you see an opportunity, go and pull the trigger on it, right? And I pretty much guarantee you though, you're never going to find a 10 out of 10 opportunity. Every single like every single deal that you look for in this size, it's going to have a problem you don't like. Guaranteed. It's like they're going to say like, okay, you have this company, but then like this person was kind of like the owner operator of this thing. When they leave, I'm taking a ton of risk. But you use that to your advantage. You say like, look, this is bullshit, right? Like this business might not make another dollar because you are the one really driving the business. So in order for me to be able to pay you back, we have to structure it this way. So you might want to do an earnout. You might want to do like a vendor take back where you pay them back over like 10 years instead of like 2 or something, right? These are the things you have to be thinking about in order to make sure that this deal doesn't collapse. And like when you're able to make deals that are pretty much like failure proof, that's where you make a ton of money for yourself. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I not really related, but one of the things something else you said just made me think back. Um, Earlier, like it was actually end of last year. It was like kind of right after we connected. I I've realized just how important it is for me to really kind of guard what I'm doing to like a very extreme degree. Just in the terms of like my mindset and where I'm at. I was actually in like a really great um, place like at the end of towards the end of last year, and then I actually had an aunt and uncle come into town, and they actually came in to deal with like my grandmother's estate and everything, which was not like a huge deal to me, but it took a lot of time. Like I was helping them out, going through stuff, and what that really did was it really messed with my whole system. And I had no idea like how much because I was very focused at the time, but before they came into town, and it really messed me up and like set me
Mm-hmm.
back several months because I completely lost all my momentum
Mm-hmm.
that I thought I could pick up again. And
Yeah.
it wasn't just that; there were other things going on, but that was the catalyst for me just kind of breaking down, and like it kind of just sucked all the energy out.
Oh, I get it, man. This is like a societal thing, right? Like you're sort of brought up to say, like, look, you have to like, respect your parents and like listen to what other people say and have all these outside influences like on you, right? It's like it doesn't matter like if you're the hardest guy in the world, right? If some
Mm-hmm.
close family member says something to you, it's going to affect you in some way, right? And the whole thing is like this took me a long, long, long time to sort of like develop out of. And I'll just give you a little context from my life, right? Like literally from age like 0, from the day I was born until age 18, I had spent maybe a maximum of about 3 days alone by myself ever. So meaning like whenever I was in the house, my parents were there or something like that. So pretty much, and I think I'm in the extreme minority on that. So probably like bottom percentile or so from like most people, right? Like if I was ever going on a trip, I was there with my family. If I was ever doing any of these things, like there was always someone there, right? But then when I turned 18, I moved away for university, and nobody was there, right? And it's like holy shit! Like that was one of the toughest years of my life. Was like 2011 when I was going to university for the first time because I was so used to having all these family members around, right? And I was just sitting there like I had all these hard classes because I was actually considering being a doctor then, so I was taking like all these really tough like organic chemistry and physics and all these classes. And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, I don't even know how to like wash my clothes right now. I swear to God, I swear to God. So it's just like basically my point was I had it so bad when I was 18 that basically nothing else ever measured up to that. Does that make sense? So like by moving
Yeah.
away and saying like, look, I have to be like fully committed to being like self-sufficient, that's where like that transformation is going to come from, right? And a lot of people say like, look, university and all that stuff, it's not that important, and to a large extent that's true, right? Like the actual knowledge isn't that important, but the transformation I had from like being 18 to being like 22 is why I'm successful today, 100%. And it has all to do with exactly what you're talking about, which is like, look, you got to be self-sufficient. You can't worry about what anyone else is thinking, and you just have to, focus on your own mission. It's just like, my mother is like realistically like the favorite person like in my life, my number one person by far. Like her, my brother, my dad, my grandparents, extremely, extremely, extremely important to me, right? It doesn't matter even if they were to tell me, look, I don't think you should do this. It doesn't affect me at
Yeah.
all. And that is not I've realized now later in life, this falls like on deaf ears for like 99.9% of people, right? And I realized that now I went from being the minority where like I was incredibly like I had a lack of self-sufficient to being like extremely, extremely, extremely self-sufficient, right? And it's like I swear to you, I have so much peace like in my mind and in my soul because I know that every decision I'm making is mine, right? And I'm not doing it because someone told me to, or I'm not doing it because to like make someone happy. And the only way I was able to get there was to take like full accountability for my own actions and to say like, look, I literally had no choice, right? Like, what am I going to do? Like, when I moved, when I was 18, when I moved to university, I'm literally like 2 hours away from everybody else. There's no option, right? So I guess my question to you would be, is it possible for you to truly feel that you have this pressure to be fully self-sufficient and put all the onus on you to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I don't think I think what where your challenge with that was, I think mine is with like leaving a 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've just gotten so there is a a very um, well, for those who haven't read, I can't think of the name of the guy's freaking book right now. Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh yeah.
His mentor, like when he was a kid, wouldn't pay him and said, you don't work for someone else. Like
Yeah.
you work for money. Otherwise you get used to it. And as I've continued to um, work for someone else, it's gotten harder and harder for me
Mm-hmm.
to contemplate like going away, to the point where I'm, especially it's more difficult probably now than it was even a couple of years ago, that I have a new job where I'm fortunately making more that I can put into music.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's that much bigger of a challenge for me to really walk away. I'm like,
Yeah,
it's
dude,
yeah.
I
So I
get
think
it.
that's
And this is a classic case of how fear manifests, right? And this is not specific to you or to your job. This is just general psychology now, right? And I experience it too. And like, I'll give you an example, right? Like, say we're doing a deal, like, we're working on one now. It's about like $15 million in size, right? When I'm doing the due diligence, like, in a way, I'm terrified, right? Because it's like, holy shit, this is a lot of money. I've been working extremely hard, right? These loans, these commercial loans that you're able to get like so cheaply, like basically our credit rating is insanely good, right? So I can get these loans for like 3% interest, 4% interest, whatever. But the thing is about them, they are all demand loans, meaning at any point, and this goes for like whether you're in America, Canada, or anywhere, all of these commercial loans for businesses are demand loans. Means at any point, the bank doesn't like something you're doing, they can demand that you pay the entire balance of the loan, right? And typically they require personal guarantees for these. So let's say we buy this thing and it craters, right? You're screwed because they're just going to
yeah.
pull. They're going to pull all the loans. So basically, my point is, when we're working on deals in the beginning, a little bit terrified because you're saying like, look, there's all of these things that can go wrong. But as we're going through the due diligence, as I'm reviewing things, I start to get more confident, and I'm a very confident person, right? And it's like, okay, look, I've never failed before. Why would I fail now? I have a great team. We have all these resources. I have so many people looking at this thing. Okay, next day, my accountant's looking at it, reviewed it, did a quality of earnings. We spent like $50,000 doing a quality of earnings, just reviewing all the company's financials. Did he find any red flags? No. Did he find any amber flags? No. Okay. Obviously, that's a better sign. So as we're going through it, getting more confident, more confident, more confident, and then by the time we're ready to buy this thing, it's like, look, I'm not going to lose. I've never lost before. It's not going to happen today, right? And like this is all the mental gymnastics that's going on in your head. But to everyone else, they're looking at you. You need to be confident, right? You need to say like, oh yeah, we're going to do this for sure. But in your head, you're terrified, right? But it's all about taking that next step and saying like, look, yeah, that's extremely scary. There's so many things you can go wrong. You recognize that fear. But it's like, look, what do I have to gain? What is the actual risk I'm taking here? And typically, if you look at 100 things that you could think would go wrong in whatever you're trying to do, 99 of them aren't going to happen, man. It just is what it is, right? It's like I have spent so much time, especially when I was younger, worrying about like, okay, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? It never does, to the extent that your mind will believe something bad could happen, right? This is just mental psychology, because like you are trying to affirm that what you're doing is not the right thing. That's what your mind is like thinking, right? It's saying like, okay, we like our current position right now. We don't know what might go wrong if we go and try to pursue this. And your whole thing is like, how am I going to support myself if it goes wrong, right? 100% understand that, right? The key thing is you have to focus on what you have to gain and what you're actually doing this for, right? It's like people don't often think, okay, well, why am I working? Well, you are working to support yourself and have ideally like a better life, right? Why would you buy a business? Well, it's the same goal, right? You're supporting yourself, you're building a better life, but by having that, it would be exceptionally, like exponentially better than what you're doing now. So, but the risk is not exponentially higher. So when you take these risks, right, you are gaining that arbitrage. And a lot of people don't think that way because they just think, oh, there's risk, I'm scared of it, right? You need to think, what risk am I actually taking? What can actually go wrong here? And in most cases, the worst outcome really isn't that bad. Like think about it, right? Say you buy a company tomorrow, okay? Like say the company's $100,000. Say you put $30,000 down and you did $70,000 with vendor financing. The thing's not going to go to zero in a week. It's not, okay? You're going to work at it. Maybe after like a few months, it doesn't get off on the right foot, whatever. You still have something coming in the door, right? Like it wasn't like a functional business. Then, you entered it and you did something that was so terribly wrong that it cratered it and went to zero. But let's just assume, okay, maybe it did go to zero. What did you actually lose? You lost 30 grand, but you gained like a ton of experience to like not do it again. You know exactly what to do now on your next deal. And it's just like, you can replace that money, and it's just like it's not the end of the world. You can go back and get a job. Like there's always going to be a place for you to work. There's always going to be a place for you to make income, right? There's not always going to be a time in your life to take a huge step forward. That's the key, right? And it's like, you're young, you have the ambition to do it. Don't be one of these people who's sitting here when you're like 55, 60, whatever, and didn't pull the trigger on it, And that's not to say, like, I don't think you'll do that or whatever. I'm just saying, like, just be very cognizant of that, right? Because so many people, they'll say, like, oh, I want to do something. I know I can do better. I might be a little scared right now, but I have, like, X, Y, and Z holding me back, right? So it's just, like, just be very cognizant of having to just call to action. That call to action is so powerful, man. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I was at with music, or kind of my journey with starting it, because it's not a typical career path, right? Or I should say it's one that people tell you not to do, and for so long, and I'm probably pretty practical too, so I kind of went. I mean, I don't know. Thinking back, maybe I didn't do too bad. I learned marketing, right, so that I could focus on music. But at the same time, that was, especially back then, I wasn't quite as cognizant of like, this is the plan. I didn't really know. There was a lot of fear behind it, right? And then as I kind of learned, and read Think and Grow Rich, I'm like, oh, okay, like. This is how it works. You just have to go for it.
Yeah.
It was actually really funny. Speaking of things that don't happen, on the way from the because I go in the office on Thursdays,
Mm-hmm.
so on the way to back home to do this this podcast, I kept imagining the craziest things were going to happen to go wrong. Like I was gonna get stuck in traffic, my car wouldn't start, like weird things that like would never happen. And I'm like, this is so stupid. And of
Yeah.
course, the one thing I didn't think of was that there was traffic, and there was, but it was fine. I got off the freeway.
Oh, it's
But it was
fine.
like so
Yeah.
stupid. I'm like, why am I like thinking of like the worst case scenario things that are gonna happen? But so it's really funny how we do that.
Oh, 100%. Man, like I have this friend, okay, and he literally has like 165, 170 IQ. Like this guy was like pretty much grandmaster level chess when he was like 8 or 9 years old or whatever. And this guy is so smart. And literally all he does is just like study and take like graduate courses and do all these things. Like he's my age. He's 30 now. And he just will not do anything because he's like so worried about what's going to go wrong. Like this guy literally did not leave his house from the start of COVID until now. Like he wouldn't even go out to get vaccinated because he was so afraid of like catching COVID. Like this is the truth, right? This is like people just get paralyzed by the fear of the unknown and what could go wrong, right? And it's just this is human nature, right? But the best way I know how, again, to get past that is saying like, look, the worst case is probably not going to happen because that's literally true, right? The worst case scenario is just like one out of like 100 scenarios. For that to happen, it's pretty damn like unlikely, right? So like think about it. You do that 100 times, most likely, like even if you went through it like 70 times, you still only have a 1 in 100 chance of that happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just how it is. But you have this, not I didn't mean you specifically, but people have this
Yeah.
like notion of always focusing on the worst case outcome, and it sort of becomes like a very clouding bias. And one thing you actually mentioned earlier was, your sort of default mindset was, okay, I have this job, that's a good source of income, that's what's supporting me. I've actually never said this publicly. I have literally never had a job. I'm not kidding you. Like never. I never like I help my parents and stuff with like their businesses and things like that. But literally, I was a kid. I was in school. Then I went to university, and then I just got into Amazon, right? And that I didn't realize then how much that actually helped me because my default was like, okay, it's do or die for me, right? Like there's no one who's gonna have my back. So that was a tremendous help for me, right? Now when I talk to people and they have this problem, and this is not an uncommon problem, right? Like tons and tons and tons of people have it, right? Again, man, I always look through life through a positive lens, okay? Like you'll never see me being like the, glass half empty guy. I'm always saying like, look, what do I have to gain from this? What positive can I bring to this? Do I have the skills and, confidence to pull this off? I always tell myself yes. Even if it's a no, and I know it's objectively a no, I always tell myself yes. Because like thinking you can't do something, thinking you're going to fail, it's never going to help you, man. Ever. I promise you, okay? And it's just like you just have to have this mindset like, look, I'm going to go attack this. I might have some bumps in the road here, but I'm going to make it happen. And like going back to what you were saying earlier, like you just have to learn to shun like everyone else out because it's your life, my friend.
Including yourself
Oh,
in time.
for
Yeah.
sure. Like don't fall over your own 2 feet, right? And it's like I can't tell you how many times like, look, I thought, okay, I'm gonna do this or I shouldn't do this or whatever. Then maybe I slept on it, and then I had like a completely opposite view. It's like, holy shit, I almost just did that, right? And it happens all the time. And it's just like you have to just say like, look, every single day I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna do make like the best possible decisions to push my life forward, right? And if you keep doing that day after day after day, I'm telling you, man, you're not gonna fail. It's just how it is. Like the world is so easy to like move up in right now, and a lot of people like aren't thinking about this, right? They're just saying like, okay, look, like I'm going to work, then I'm going to buy groceries, then I'm gonna go like watch TV or whatever. That's like all they're fixated on. My friend, this is the best time in human history to like push yourself forward. You know?
Yeah, I don't think people even realize how easy, because we've kind of had conversations about this before,
Mm-hmm.
but how easy it is, especially even these executives you think have a ton of experience.
They don't know shit.
They don't know anything, and if they're so easy to roll over and
Yeah.
just like it just with to the smallest amount of pushback, they will just fold.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, I think I had heard other people say that, Dan Pena or um, David Goggins or some of these other people
Mm-hmm.
like that. But I had never seen that until I worked at the place I'm at now, where I'm around all of these executives, and I'm like, they have no idea what they're doing.
No, they don't know shit. Like that's one of the things I do in my company, right? It's like I never pretend that I know more than the person who's actually doing the job. Never.
Mm,
Like I'll just go to them and say like, "Look, what is wrong about this?" And then they'll just tell me. And like people have this like clouded view of thinking like, "Oh, because you're the boss or whatever, like you know everything." Like the amount of things I actually know like are so small, right? And when I say
mm,
no, I mean like no to like an expert level. But the things I
yeah,
do know, I'm 100% on, and like no one's gonna like challenge me on that because like I know what I know, right? And then I give them the respect to say like, okay, when they're telling me they know something, they get that respect, right? Then I say like, okay, I listen to them, and it's actually funny because it doesn't just apply to yourself and the company you're working with. It's also directly applicable to the banks and to the accountants and lawyers that you're working with when you're trying to build a business, right? It's actually so funny. So I work with HSBC. That's our main bank, and all the time, like the vice president of like HSBC Canada, he's coming by. They want to talk because they respect like working with us because I tell them straight like what's going on, right? And and whenever I go like ask them for money or whatever for like buying a company or if we need like more working capital or things like that, normally I'm talking to the vice president and like a couple of the senior directors. So a couple months ago, these guys had like the audacity to bring like an intern analyst there and send like a relationship manager over there. I'm like, okay, because we were doing like a smaller deal for like $5 million. Like that's small for like this size of company now. Like
yeah,
it's not big, and not to be like humble brag or anything. It's just the reality, right? And they're like, okay, we're not gonna put the senior people there because it's a small deal or whatever. So they send this girl who literally just started working there like 2 months ago, and this like other like junior guy to like do this for me, okay? And literally they sent me this offer, this letter of intent and of like what they're gonna give and everything, and I just like scratch everything out and I say like, okay, no, I'm not paying any fees, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing all of this, and I want more money, all these things, and then I send it back to them, and they just signed it. Right, like they didn't know anything about it, and then I'm like, okay, I guess this is good now. And then like of course like later when like the boss is like, oh my god, this is what we signed, and they give them shit for it. It's hilarious, but it's like that's to my benefit, right? It's like
mm,
you can take advantage of these people who don't have the experience or know any of this stuff, right? Like HSBC is a huge bank. It's one of the biggest banks in the entire world. Do you really think like they're going to be paying that much attention to like every single deal? The answer is no, right? And that doesn't just apply to them. That applies to every big company. So it's like when you're really dialed in, you can take advantage of all these inefficiencies in other people's businesses, right? And that's to all your benefit. 100%.
yeah. Now it's it's actually funny, completely unrelated. Um, I end up somehow, whenever there's a Maserati, I somehow end up in that situation. So
Nice.
I rented a Maserati for a music video
Mm-hmm.
a few years ago, and that was a blast. And then a few years, last year, I got together with a few friends of mine, and one of them had recorded a song called Maserati,
Nice.
and that's actually
Send it
coming
to
out
me.
tonight. The
Oh,
same
okay.
day that I'm on with you, and you just recently bought a Maserati.
Sick car. Sorry, send me that after. Nice.
Oh yeah, I'll have to send it to you. Yeah,
Okay.
it should actually be out at like midnight, I think, on New York time. But I'll send you right now.
Nice.
So
Okay. Well, I guess just out of the interest of time now. So, what else can I help you with? Do you have anything on your list? Do you have anything like specific I can help you with, or do you want to
um,
retouch on that?
I think we ran through kind of everything that I was like top of mind was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the other thing, I did just go through the re-verification of my Amazon account,
Mm-hmm.
seller account. So that's I originally I first gotten it done right before my aunt and uncle came into town, and
Mm-hmm.
when they I can't really say I don't want to say they messed up my whole schedule, but
It's okay to
like
say it, man.
I don't even understand exactly how much that screwed me up. Like
Mm-hmm.
like completely my mindset was just completely gone when they left.
So, like, were they kind of like So there's different ways that they can screw you up. Were they like sort of like not supportive of like the things you were telling them, or were they just like taking up too much of your time, or like what
It
sort of?
wasn't. Yeah, it's okay. It was really the time, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't like because if they weren't supportive, I mean, I can kind of deal with that, and sort of. I mean, and I'm pretty quiet anyways. Like I don't just tell everybody what I've got going on. And usually it's like, oh hey, I got a song out, and they're like excited, so
Mm-hmm.
that's cool. Um, but the biggest thing with them specifically is they're from Hawaii, and whenever they
Okay.
travel, for whatever reason, I don't understand why they do this. I think it's a Hawaiian thing, but they don't switch time like their time. So they're up like midnight from like 9 p.m. to midnight. That's
Okay.
when I get shit done,
Right.
and they're up like chatting from 9 p.m. to midnight,
Oh.
and so that really messed me up. And I didn't realize it because it's just like when I'm up and I'm like, well, yeah, they're in town and I don't see them that often, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
When really, and they were in town for a couple weeks, actually about, almost a month, because of what they were dealing with, and they had oddly never switched to Arizona time. They were like always on Hawaiian time. Um,
That's why I love like just living by myself, man. Live by myself, and I just
yeah.
pretty much never have guests. If I ever want to like see someone, I go and like meet them at some location, then I just leave.
So now, anyway, I've finally gotten the sort of my Amazon stuff back
Mm-hmm.
together, and I'm um, really aiming to get that started here.
Yeah, because you were doing some
Um,
retail arbitrage, right? A little bit.
yeah, a little bit, and then I kind of I let it sit,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm getting my first like I'm about ready to order my first like product, and I think
Mm-hmm.
your advice that you shared on like your 0 to billion challenge has been really helpful, because when I was first thinking of doing it back November, December, I was like, all right, I got this amount of money, let's just find a product. And now I'm really kind of being a lot more strategic about it and saying, all right, let's test a few different
Mm-hmm.
product categories and really see, prove the concept. So even like your challenges really helped me out with that.
Oh, like so many people get it wrong. Like so many people think like, okay, I'm gonna go make like the 10th different version of the same product people already have,
Mhm.
and they're just gonna buy mine. It's like, why? Right? Like
Yeah.
why? Why are they gonna buy yours? It's like the other ones have like 10,000 reviews and all these things, and like they're probably half the price of what you can make it for because they're selling so many like so much higher quantity, right? It's like why would they buy yours? And people don't like that question at all, just
Hmm.
because they think like they're special, right? Like oh my product's gonna be the best. Well, it's probably not, right? Like you gotta
Yeah.
be a probability. So it's like my whole thing is like I am very con. I would yeah for sure I would say conscious of the fact that like look, I try not to promote my version of like Amazon that much because I realize like what is a skill, what the skills that are specific to me are, right? So
Hmm.
I try to like guide people and say like, look, if you want to do this, you should go approach it in this way. And
Hmm.
like I don't think people realize like how hard Amazon actually is. I'm not saying that about you specifically because
Yeah.
like every day I get like dozens of
Oh, I'm
messages from
sure.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, and they say like, look, how can I do what you do? Well, it's extremely difficult. It's like you don't have like
Hmm.
the like 7 years of like experience and like doing it at like a world class level. Like again, when I started this, I had like nothing to lose, like guns blazing. Like I was like 24 or whatever, just dedicated all in 120 hours, and that's like I did that for years and years and years, and really 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 mastered like the Amazon business, right? And through like the wholesale and all those things. So it's like it's extremely disingenuous for someone to come in and say like, look, I've never sold anything on Amazon, I want to do like what you do. It's like it doesn't work
Yeah.
that way. And it's like I try to give tips, right? It's like that's why if you want to do Amazon, the retail arbitrage is the best thing to do because it's going to teach you, look, these are things people want to buy already. You're going to be able to make some flips. That's going to work out, right? If you want to do like the private label stuff, for sure, you have to test. You have to do done like realistically, I would say like 4 or 5 different products. See which ones work,
Yeah.
and they have to be different. You can't just put like a different skin on something and say like, oh, okay, that's gonna work. It's not. I guarantee it's not.
Hmm.
And I have seen so many people go and work hard for like 6 months, save up like 10 grand, go and dump it all into one product and fail. It's just like, man, I can't promote that in good conscience. Like,
Yeah, I think something that I kind of knew from both from my experience with the unicorn thing, as well as working kind of in ecom for a while, because a lot of their business was actually Amazon when I was
mm-hmm,
working for them. Um, like half of it, and then half of it was from these other two sites that I did email marketing for. So, but they didn't even. I mean, they have these very well established brands in the industry, and they did not promote those brands on Amazon. It was
Mm-hmm.
purely retail arbitrage. We would use, of course, the same
Mm-hmm.
suppliers and order the same products, but we did not. They did not promote. It wasn't that they were trying to build a brand on Amazon. That was all for their own
Mm-hmm.
websites, and even like through my unicorn store, as I was when I was promoting it, and I've since shut it down because I realize like I don't want to build like a brand. Like I
Mm-hmm.
mean, for at least for that. Like if I'm building a brand, it's going to be for my music because that's what I'm
Yeah.
about. Um, and it's going like the private label is its own challenge, and I really agree. I think um, I certainly wasn't into it enough to really spend the time that it
Mm-hmm.
took to do it.
Oh no, for sure. And it's like look, whenever I try to make a business decision, I try to go through the path of like least resistance, right? It's like, okay, if I want to bring something to market, what's the actual proof that anyone wants to buy it, right? And I've made this mistake so many times, right? Like this is all through like scars I have that now I understand this, but people are always trying to fight me on this. They always think that their product is going to be the one that's going to work, and it never is. I promise. So it's like what I would rather do instead is like, okay, let's take something that's working in some other area of like maybe it's being sold on Facebook Marketplace, maybe it's just being sold in brick and mortar stores or whatever, and let's go and sell it on Amazon. Maybe it'll work, right? It's like that has so like such higher probabilities of success than just saying like, look, let me take something that's probably not going to work. I don't know if anyone's going to want to buy it and bring it there. If you know or have some evidence that people want to buy it in different outlets, they're probably going to want to buy it on Amazon too. That's not always the case, but it's a lot more likely than not, right? So that's the best thing about retail arbitrage, right? And for those of you who don't know what retail arbitrage is, you're basically going into, stores, like any kind of store you want. They all have UPC codes there, like on all the products. You go in and scan them on your phone. You can see like what they're being sold for on Amazon. If what they're being sold for on Amazon is significantly higher than what they're being sold for in the store, then you buy them and then you sell them on Amazon, right? It's not rocket science, but it makes perfect sense because you're basically earning the arbitrage and saying like, look, the customer who wants to buy this product isn't in this area where the store is. The customer might be in like Arkansas or something, and they'll buy it like online, and we'll ship it to them. That's the whole idea, guys. And that's the idea that like really like started my life, right? Like that's where I made all my money from in the beginning because I understood this concept. Look, like there's like in Canada, for example, there's 32 million people here. Okay, it's hugely spread out, like all over the place, right? Most likely the customer for my product is not going to be like where I am. They're going to be somewhere else. And when you think of it like this in these simple terms, it's very obvious as to like why it makes sense, right? So 100% highly recommend retail arbitrage. It's going to be like relevant forever, guaranteed, and it's pretty much always guaranteed to work and be profitable, assuming you do the work to find like really good products. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah.
That's good. So yeah, I guess just out of the interest of time, then we'll sort of like do a recap. It's like, man, like I really want to see you like do well, right? And like again, like I understand the fear of like stepping away from the 9 to 5 job, but you have to like look at it through the perspective of look, I'm the man. I have this, and this to gain from this. I want a better life for myself, and like I'm gonna make it work, right? And when you have that
Mhm.
confidence in yourself, man, like the world's limitless, man. And I know that might sound like a cliche or something, but it's true because there's not that many people going after it. And like people think like, oh, there is, but they're not. They're not. They're lying to themselves, right? They're like kind of interested, like, oh yeah, like I want a nice car, I want this, I want that, but like they're not going at it at the level to get there. They're just talking shit, basically. So it's like if you really want to do it, you have to be like 110% committed, saying like, look, I am going to make this work no matter what. And when you have that thinking, that's going to help you in other areas. That's going to help you shield yourself from like, influences from other people, for example. Like you're not going to care. Like, okay, like if my aunt says she's here, she's like making noise or whatever, I've got to work, aunt. I don't have time for
Yeah.
your bullshit, It's like, look, I'm here to, live like a top percentile life, right? It's like, I don't have time for that. It's like, I love you, I respect you, I've got to do this, right? And it's like, I don't have that problem anymore. I had that problem like 10 years ago, right? But I like outgrew it through those things I was talking about. So then you have your mental setup, right? As soon as you think, okay, I can go and conquer the world, that's when you're gonna start doing it. Now, your actual action plan, again, I think the two most realistic ones for you are either go save up some money and do the real estate, but I think the best one for you is to go and buy a business, man. Because I think you have the personality and sort of the skills to do that, especially if it's something like related to the music industry or something like that. I think that's going to be like hugely, hugely, hugely like beneficial to you too. And the other thing we didn't even talk about is there's probably like no one who's trying to buy those types of businesses, those like recording businesses.
Yeah,
like
sure.
most people want either like services or like distribution companies. There's not pretty much anyone looking to buy like creative industry companies. So you just have so much to gain by doing that, and you can set up those deals to be so heavily like in your favor, right? And
Oh
like
yeah.
yeah, like 100%, man. And it's like, man, if you need help like structuring deals or whatever, I can help you with that, no problem. But it's just like, you know, that's what I would do. Save up your money, get
Yeah.
some cash, and go after it. You can do it, man. 100%.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the best. I mean, it's because that is something that I've thought of before, and but it's always. I mean, I guess it's easy in your head to just dismiss it after a while,
Mm-hmm.
and you really got me thinking about that again, and like, and being with your experience, it's been really helpful because before, it's easy to look at it and think that's it's to just get scared of it. I guess is a better way to
Oh,
put it.
100%.
But even like how much easier it is to really go after a lot of these smaller companies too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely. I'm definitely going to be thinking and probably looking a lot more in that area in the next weeks and months.
For sure. And that's the thing, man. Like, if I had to do it, like, people ask me all the time, if you had to do it all again, what would you do? Like, I probably would have started with buying businesses for like zero money because people don't want to believe that it's possible. I guarantee you, I know for a fact it's possible, right? And it's like that's what I would do and just start building. And like probably I probably would have went to university for like 2 or 3 years, then just like started doing that. That's what I would have done. And then like, could you imagine if I started like at 21 versus like 24? Like I'd probably be like right now net worth around like 200 million. But it doesn't
Yeah,
matter. It doesn't matter because it's like it's whenever you start is where you start, right? If you want to make more money, you have to play for a couple more years, right? That's all it is. And man, once
yeah,
you start building and building and building, it grows so quick, man. Like this company was a $5 million company like 4 years ago, like 4.5 million, not even five, right? It had like 800K in EBITDA, right? Like it was just a small company. Now it's like 10, 12x that, just like 4 or 5 years later, right? And it just grows so quickly, and that's how it is, right? And when you go all in, I'm telling you, man, like your life's gonna change forever, okay? And you just have to have that belief, like, look, yes, we have something to lose here, but we can always go back to it. You're not
yeah.
always. And sorry, how old are you again?
32.
Yeah, dude, like you're not gonna be 32 again, right? But
Yeah,
you're always gonna have an opportunity to go back and get another job, right? Like, dude, you have next 10 years, man, that's your time to just like crush this. That's what you
yeah,
want to do, and like that's the perfect time, man. Like I probably wasn't ready for it when I was 18, definitely not. Wasn't ready for it when I was like 19, but like in my mid 20s, I was ready, right?
yeah,
And I had like less experience than what you had, so it's like if I can do it, I can make it work. You can too, right? For sure.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay, man. Well, okay, I think that's good for today. Unless you have any more questions, yeah,
Yeah, I think
some
that was
comments,
great.
yeah. They're saying in the chat, you needs to go for it, for sure. Yeah. Okay, and then yeah, we can like touch back again, man. Like what I want to do too is like through developing the show is like touching back with people like maybe in a couple quarters or something, see like where they're at, see if they need another push from me because I'm really good at pushing people. I don't know if you if you
I
know.
no, I realized that the first time I connected with you, it
Yeah.
was like it's really people underestimate, and I should say I underestimated, even hearing Dan Pena say it a million times.
Mm-hmm.
Even I underestimated how much just interacting with different people like you really can push me. I mean, like interacting with people who are where you want to be,
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be. Just somebody who can push you. I mean, it's a huge asset.
Oh, 100%, man. And I get that too. Like I go and talk to my billionaire friends. I'll be like, "Oh, look, we did like 20 million in revenue this year." It's like, "Okay, nice. When you get serious about this, I'm going to tell you like some other things to do." It's like they think I'm like a joke, right? And that's the truth.
Yeah.
It's like that's the thing. They're like 40 years older than me. So it's like I'm pretty sure I tell them like, "Look, when I'm 40 in 40 more years, I'm going to be kicking your ass." And so you don't forget that. But no, that's the truth, man. It's like there's always someone to look up to and someone who knows better, and then you just learn from them, right? It's like that's how it is. So that's why that's why I'm doing the social media stuff, because there's pretty much nobody, man, who's like my age or like we're the
No.
same age or whatever, who's doing this stuff. And everyone wants to have these like self-limiting beliefs that says like, okay, you got to be like old and like gray hair to like buy a company and like do all this stuff. And it's like, no, it's not, Doug. Just go for it. You have nothing to lose. It's like, trust me, man. You'll do it. I know you'll do it, and you'll come out on the other side like really well, for sure. I promise. See, I'm confident in your ability to do it. So you got to be confident too, man. Okay.
No, I do.
Okay, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and we're gonna keep touching base, and yeah, we're gonna have a big update on this in we'll say like 2 quarters. I'll give you some run room, some room there to run, and then you can go and come back with us. Okay.
Yeah, sounds like a plan. Everyone, by the way, can reach out or connect with me
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram.
Yeah.
My eclectic self is my handle, and I'm also on, of course, Spotify, Apple Music, and I've got my song called Maserati coming out tonight. So
Yeah, we'll play it for sure. Okay, and I'll have that information for you guys after. Okay, so thank you so much, Stefan, and have a good night. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. See ya.